Move it.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome. This is the Grab and Go Binder Workshop. And I would like to welcome you all here. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my presentation. If you have questions, put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that we stop and answer anything that comes along. I'll stop a couple of times as we go through. So let's get started. So can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So as we talk through this, let's see how this is going to work. Okay. So why should we get organized? Can you see is there a bar across the top for you guys? No. Okay, never mind. So why should we get organized? And a couple of things come to mind. More specifically is that there are 12 million older adults that live alone in the United States. That's a large number. And if you think about it, about 70% of those are older folks who are women. 70% of the people that are there are women. So it really is important for us to really get organized because it's an important thing for those of us who live alone. Oftentimes one spouse is the person who is likely to pay all the bills and know where everything is and has all of that good information. And the other one may have some idea, but isn't really involved. And the other thing that happens is children don't live in the same state as their parents anymore. We used to live close by and have close relationships, but now everybody's all over the place. In my case, my kids are in Chicago and Washington, D.C. and Tennessee. So they don't have an understanding of what happens day to day in my life. And if you think about it, emergencies can happen anytime. It doesn't matter whether it's a medical emergency of some kind. It could be a house fire. It could be a storm that comes through. Ice storms, straight line winds, doesn't even have to be a tornado, but those kinds of emergencies happen all the time. So I'm Deb Miller, and I want to welcome you. I'm an author, speaker, and life organizer coach. I've written 3 books. The Business Organizer Journal is designed for businesses, small business folks. My Life Organizer is a catalog of critical information that people can gather. And the My Health Organizer focuses on individuals in businesses. So my background is I believe in being prepared, and I have joined several disaster recovery organizations here in Indiana. And I participate frequently. So why don't we just organize our documents? Why is it so hard for us to get that done? And our typical feelings are that we get overwhelmed and frustrated by the amount of paperwork and our inability to find important documents quickly. If you have piles of papers on your desk, if your filing system is unorganized, if you've got stacks of paper that you put in a drawer and you just close the drawer up, you throw it in the drawer and close the drawer. Those are all places where people keep their important documents. And sometimes they're organized, sometimes they're not. There's a lot of anxiety and stress when dealing with documents of our loved ones, of our parents or grandparents. Just asking them for information is often difficult. oftentimes we don't feel like we have the time to devote to organizing when, something's not likely to happen. And, we live in a world where we think, everything's going to be hunky-dory, and if we have an emergency, we're 7 minutes from an ambulance. Well, most of the time that's true. But if something happens to us, we need to have a way to be prepared, and organizing our paperwork is just one piece of that whole process. We don't always know what to organize or even where to start. It seems like an overwhelming kind of situation for us to do that. So as we get older, then we want to downsize and remove clutter. And because if your office space or your space itself is cluttered, it leads to anxiety and stress. So it isn't always just being able to take care of the information and organizing it. It's just removing all of the other stressors in our life. So what is a grab-and-go binder? Well, when we talk about a grab-and-go binder, what we're talking about is all of your important papers and your critical information all gathered in one place. And it's ready to go in an instant. If you need to leave your house for some reason, used to be we had about 10 to 15 minutes to leave our house if there was a house fire. Now we have about 3 minutes before the toxins in the air from all of the chemicals that we use, all the plastics, all of that kind of stuff becomes toxic. So we really need to be able to leave quickly. One of the first things that I always tell people is when you're getting started is to make sure that you have your, in case of emergency, contacts on your refrigerator. You need to have them written out. You need to have them someplace that you know where that information is, but you also need to leave it on your refrigerator for the EMS folks, if they come to your house, that they know who to contact in case there's an emergency. So how do you go about gathering your documents together? Because basically what we're doing is we're creating a grab-and-go binder. So you need to gather up all of those documents that you've got laying around that are important, that you need to put together in a file or a place to keep them. So it doesn't matter how you do it. You could have a wire file basket on top of your desk. You could use a briefcase. My dad used to tuck everything into his briefcase, especially once he retired and didn't use it anymore. Sometimes we have a wheeled computer bag or a suitcase that's just sitting around not being used. Scrapbooking storage boxes are always very handy to have, or just simply an Amazon box that you got something from. Just something some place that you can take the information that you're getting and put it away so that you can get to it. And the kinds of things that you have to gather are categorized in different ways. So I'm going to look at the categories as I've created them in my book that kind of leads you down the path. So the first thing you want to know is everything about your house and your home. So do you have your mortgage papers? Do you have a rental agreement? What are the HOA fees that you might be paying? Where do you send those things? You might have a home equity line of credit, your home insurance. You want to make sure you have at least the policy pages, the important pages that tell what all of your benefits are. Your property tax statement. If you have a security system, do you have all the login information? Sometimes you have it on an app on your phone, but you may not be able to access your app on your phone if there's no cell service. Trash collection, repair people, landscapers, housekeeping, all of those kinds of information are things that you would want to have in the event of an emergency. Then there's all those bills that you pay on a regular basis. You got, your electric, your gas. What I recommend people do is they take one copy of 1 month of their bill that has their account number, has where you mail your payment, all of that kind of information on it, and write your login and your password at the top of the copy of the paper, so that if you have to log in from some other place, at least you have that information close by. And then, of course, there's all those vehicles we have, whether it's an automobile or motorcycle, RVs, boats, farm equipment, you name it, you've got to have insurance on your vehicles. So you need to know what the coverages are. So the coverage page is always a good one to have, and the page that lists where you pay and who who your agent is in case you have an emergency. If you have installment loans on all those vehicles, you want to know what that information is. And in Indiana, we pay property taxes on our cars, so you might want to have that information as well. Then, of course, there's all those what I call the money lists, and those are the things that all of your accounts where you keep your money, or you have your credit cards, your investment accounts, your retirement accounts, your banks. A pay stub is always helpful to have because it has all basic information on it. Do you have a safe deposit box, and where is that located, and who's authorized to get into your safe deposit box? You'll have to make sure that you have the appropriate people on that account so that they can have access to the information. And then there are things that are specific to an individual. So you might have some physical assets. Like I have a couple of paintings that are signed. We bought, from a gallery somewhere on our travels. They may not have a lot of value, but they do have some value. If you have cryptocurrencies or collectibles, my mother used to collect Hummels, so she had hundreds of Hummels. Jewelry or firearms, you need to really keep track of all of that information in your accounts. Then, of course, there's all that health information that you might need. Your insurance policies, your allergies, your known medical conditions. What are all your vaccines? What over-the-counter meds are you taking, or medication? So making a list of all of this information can take some time to do, but if you can, as you gather up information, you can write it out, make copies of the policies, that kind of thing, make a list, even if it's just a handwritten list of all the medications that you're taking and the dosage and who the doctor was that is prescribed it. And then, don't forget about your pets. Your pets may be on medication. You may need to know who their vet is, where to go. Around here, we have choices of hospitals and pharmacies. And so do you have a preferred hospital that you prefer to go to? Some insurance plans, could require that you go to the IU system. Others might say the community health system. Every place you go, there are choices to be made. And a lot of those times it's based on your insurance, and knowing which ones are your preferred providers is really important. And then there's the legal stuff, all of this kind of stuff. Everyone should have a last will and testament. Doesn't take a lot to get one of those anymore. You can go online. There's all kinds of online services where you can get help. Will and Trust is one of them that I've seen lately. There are other services that you can get. So you should have a last will. There's also, you need to have a document that's the appointment of a healthcare representative. if something happens to you and you're debilitated, you really need to have someone identified who can make those decisions for you. You don't want your doctor and the courts to make those kinds of decisions. You want somebody that you trust. Living wills are good. They're not always followed by the doctors and the hospitals, but at least it gives you, lets them know your frame of mind at the time that you wrote it. A DNR is a do not resuscitate. So if you're someone who has an illness that's advanced cancer or something like that, you may have a DNR that says, if my heart stops, don't start it again. And then there's powers of attorney. There's a medical power of attorney and there's a financial power of attorney. So you need to make sure that you have the appropriate documents that you need. And, do you have contracts that maybe for land or something else that you've got? You need to have copies of all of those kinds of things. It's always good to have a copy of your marriage certificate, a divorce decree, custody documents, military discharge, a physical copy of your social security card. You need to have an original card. You may not need it right now, but in the future you will. So that's really the basics of it. But there's also a place where you need to keep track of some of your personal information. Things like your name, your place of birth, your social security number, your driver's license number. Do you have a passport? What's the passport number? And do you have does it have a expiration date that's coming up? Are you an organ donor? There's all kinds of information that you would want to keep for yourself, for your children, maybe even your grandchildren. All of your social media accounts and the one that gets forgotten a lot is a list of family and friends to contact. It's my children, since they don't live in the area, don't really know all of my friends and and the people that I would want to have them know if something happened to me. So having that information is really critical. So you guys have any questions so far? I gotta see.
I don't have questions. I just want to say how amazing this is, because I think about, important information. I wouldn't think about all of this. Right.
Yeah.
And then there was a conversation I had with a friend recently where we had talked about the social media account. If someone does, God forbid, something would happen to me and nobody has my social media passwords or anything, what happens to my social media account? So I think someone had said, maybe there's like a legacy, it turns into a legacy, but how would, like Facebook know, so valuable, such valuable info. Thank you.
So once you've gathered all of this information, so what do you do with it? What's the next step? And the next step for me is putting it into a binder, something that you can actually take with you in the event of emergency. I like these zippered binders because they have a place to tuck the documents inside. They also have a place on the outside where it's like an accordion folder. So you would be able to just tuck things in during the year that you maybe aren't ready to organize just yet, but at least you have them all there in the same place. So I use sheet protectors because it's just so easy to tuck a piece of paper in, and if something gets updated, you pull the old one out and stick the new one in. It's literally that easy to do. And I actually try to do to go through my binder at least twice a year. Once in the middle of the summer and once towards the end of the year. So this is a great time of year to be thinking about putting this together and actually keeping track of what information you have and updating it. You know, every year something else changes and we have to do that. I use some checklists that I've created as the table of contents, and I'll be sharing those with you so that you can have a checklist where you can just go through and make sure that you've gotten all of the information that you should be gathering. So where are you going to keep this binder, this nice little binder that you've got? I like the handle on mine so I can just grab it and go, but you could keep it on a closet shelf somewhere. Sometimes you might want to tuck it behind some furniture. So if you've got a piece of furniture by your front door, you could tuck it down behind that. If you have a go bag in your car, you might want to keep it with your go bag, or if it's not in your car, if it's with the information that you would grab if you had to leave quickly. A lot of times I scan the documents onto a thumb drive and put them in a safe deposit box. That's another option for people. Or you can leave it with a trusted child or advisor, but that you may not want to do just yet. So what I suggest is people, once you've got all of this information, that you scan your documents onto an external drive, onto a thumb drive to someplace, so that you can keep those in your safe deposit box or some other place where you can have access to it if you need it. You don't want to have a lot of copies of it, and you certainly don't want to just give them to your kids or to somebody else, because that is all of your financial information. You do want to protect it at some level, but you also need to be able to get to it and have access to it. And if you don't have internet connections and you know your cell phones aren't working and you need to make phone calls, you can sometimes get a landline that'll work. Having that information available is really critical, especially if you're trying to get a hold of insurance people or you know, medical people. Having medical information is really critical. The other thing that you can do is use your cell phone and simply take a video of your house. Just walk through your house, taking a video, talking about it. You know, if there's pictures on the wall, if there's stuff in your closets, you open the drawers, take a look at stuff. It gives you a record for your insurance for one thing, but it also helps if something would happen, it gives you a record of what you have in your house at the time that you did the video. And you can put that on a thumb drive just along with your documents and have it in one place. And I would also take a picture of the exterior of your house too, not just your interior, the interior of your house. So if you're worried about, safety of your information, if you put it in a regular, binder, what you might do is put a false label in the binder and stick it in with your cookbooks or something. Somebody coming into your house is not necessarily going to look through your cookbooks. But it's, it's a thought. I wouldn't share the information until it's needed, but I would be sure that you let everybody know that you have that information and what it looks like and where they might find it. If you make a backup, don't store it on your computer. It's not necessarily safe to be on your computer. And don't use typical cloud storage places. Those aren't as safe either. You want to put it on an encrypted site somewhere. So something like a LastPass, which encrypts your passwords and stuff like that. There's storage places that allow you to encrypt the information and still have access to it in the cloud. But just be careful not to just leave it out there for somebody else to come along and get. I also have another folder that I keep. This is my red folder. It's literally a folder that has multiple folders in it. I got it at, I think, Home Depot or Office Depot. And basically what's in it is a copy of my living will, the legal document that appoints the healthcare representative for my husband and I, the power of attorney, a list of all of our doctors and their phone numbers and what their specialties are, a list of the medications that we take, copies of our insurance cards, and copies of our family and friends that we want to contact. This goes with me when I travel. It goes with me when I go to an emergency room. It gets tucked in my backpack. It provides all of the information that might be needed in the event of emergency where I have to make a decision. And it happens more frequently than you think. A friend of mine was recently in a car accident, and she was in the car with her sister, and they are both each other's emergency contact people. So with both of them in the hospital, it was really difficult to find somebody who could take over and have the information. And fortunately, they had made arrangements, but it was still difficult to try to figure all of that kind of stuff out. So you want to make sure that, that's an easy thing to do, is to have just a folder that's put together for that kind of information. I also have one of the checklists that I'll give you guys is something that I call the unexpected trip to the emergency room. And basically, this is a checklist of things that you might want to have available for the patient and for yourself as you're going to an emergency room. Things like a warm sweater or sweatshirt, slippers, comfortable clothes to wear home, skin lotion and lip balm, things, all of the kinds of stuff that make your stay in an emergency room bearable. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're there for a long time before something happens. And if you end up having to stay, having stuff with you for yourself, is really comforting. And so I put together this list. So all of this stuff is not hard to do, but it's hard to get people to follow through and commit to completing it, just because we're so busy and we have so many things in our life that can interfere. So I put together 2 coaching packages for folks. And the first one I call the Paperwork Power Hour. And basically that's a one-on-one virtual conversation that we would have to help you get organized and know what to start with and how to what your strategy could be and some support for you. The next one is a Life Organizer Masterclass, and this is more in-depth training on managing the paperwork, ways to reduce stress and anxiety, copies of some forms, a Q&A session, and personalized coaching. And all of that will help you stay on track and actually get this done. So if you're thinking about, I've talked about this My Life Organizer book, and basically it's a catalog, it's a journal. You can write the information in it. And I should probably have gotten it down. But it is a fill in the blank. It has all of the information that you could possibly want to put and gather. And you can use this as a guide as well. And it's available on Amazon.com. If you have questions or want to talk to me about stuff, you can get me at life.coach@lifeorganizercoach.com for any questions that you might have. I look forward to hearing from you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Deb, there's a lot of stuff to do in this. Do you suggest one, I guess, is there a type of person that would take the first one or the second one? I know you said the second one was more of a in-depth. Who would be those? I'm sorry, who would be those people? You know what I mean? What?
I think there are people who would just need to know how to start and how to approach things. And those are the folks that the one-on-one calls are really good for. If you just, if you know the kinds of things that you're going to do and you're organized enough that you can put the information on a calendar and say, okay, every day I'm going to work on this for a half an hour at this time of day, and schedule it. And you can get it done within 30 days easily, because as bills come in, you just write it on the bill and throw it in the basket. And then once you've gathered all the information, then you just put it in
Right.
in the folder. Other people have no idea, where their passwords are, how to get it. And I recommend people just start one section at a time. So, the easiest stuff to make sure of is, do you have a will? Have you got that legal information? That's really a critical piece to all of this.
Yeah.
Do that first. And then start going through, and you can fill out the personal information pretty easily. That's just, that's about you and your family. So you would be able to, you would know, names, addresses, birth dates, stuff like that. Same for your children and your grandchildren. Sometimes it might take a little bit of time. And then think about, okay, my house. What do I need to know about my lodging? Do I rent? Do I own? Do I have a mortgage? Do I not have a mortgage? All of those things, just think through, and that's where this book can help you, because it really takes you through the process. And this book has a place for 2 residences. And I thought, when I first created it, I thought, well, I'm gonna use that second residence in case I have I'm a snowbird and I have a place somewhere else. But the more I thought about it, if you're taking care of someone else, like your mother or your father or something like that, and you have 2 households that you're trying to manage, you could keep the second household information in the same location, so you don't have to worry about trying to figure out where it's going.
Mhm.
And there's 2 sets of information, one for one house, one for the other. So then I would go to the utilities. All right, so where's my phone numbers? Who's my carrier?
Mhm.
Where do my bills get paid? That kind of thing. Sometimes people also need help setting up online bill pay. And that's where I can go in and help. If you're local to the Indianapolis area, I can come and help you actually organize your information and actually get it set up so that it's set up for you. I don't always recommend that people have automatic bill pay. I think sometimes that can get you in trouble. So
Mhm.
one thing
Mhm.
that I've done as a rule is, I have 3x5 cards that are in my checkbook. And this one, bright yellow, has all the due dates of all of my everything I own.
Smart.
So it's got my Verizon, my Citi card, my Target card, Comcast, all of that kind of stuff. I just have the due dates. It doesn't have anything else other than that. Then the other card is green. And it has all of the things that are scheduled or due. So this card has got when my mortgage is due, when my insurance payments are due. I also keep track of all my insurance and my taxes and license plates and stuff like that along the
Mm.
bottom. So because I can never remember from one year to the next what I paid. And I just tucked this into my checkbook. And then if I get notices for that an amount is due, I just write it on a note with the amount. So I only pay bills twice a month. Right at the first of the month, and then at after my Social Security comes about third week. So
Smart.
that's all I do. And so
Mhm.
as I pay them, I mark them off, because you get the emails that say, oh, you owe this amount of money, but I'm not going to go in and I don't want to forget it, but I also don't want to have to search through my stuff every time I have to pay bills to find all that information. So as it comes through, I just write the amount on a Post-it note, scratch it off, throw it away at the end of the month. So there's a lot of little tricks like that I can help people with as they're working through this process. The whole idea with the Grab-N-Go binder is get the important documentation and the information that you need in one place, so that if you have to leave your house for whatever reason, it's there and available for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love your idea of the Grab-N-Go binder, and it's got the handle, it's got the, it's zippered, right? So it's not all going to fall out. And, and keep it by your front door, because gosh, an emergency, like you said, I mean, 3 minutes is so valuable, I mean,
You don't think
goes
about that.
fast.
I
It
mean,
goes
that's
fast.
barely enough time to get your shoes and your socks and grab your
Oh,
purse and out the door.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but and hopefully you'll never ever have to use it. And
right.
the one thing, it's like, I don't want to be a negative Nelly. That's not why I'm saying this. I was away from my house for 2.5 months trying to manage my household. And being that far away from my house was really difficult. And I did not have all of that information with me.
Mhm.
So it would have been so much easier had I had that organization done before a medical emergency happens. And there's all kinds of medical emergencies going on right now. Think about it. We've had a pandemic. We've had people with long COVID. We've got folks who are in the hospital with RSV and some of these other issues. That's a fact of life that's not going away, unfortunately. And
Mhm.
so being prepared and, having the stuff with you that you need to have to make your life easier is critical as far as I'm concerned.
Sorry, Deb, my voice is a little scratchy. You really, on the will end of it, you say that something like trust and will is just, you should have something in place.
You should have something in place. There's I can never remember there's another service that provides you a will if you've got their service for the lawyers. Legal Shield, that's what it is.
Oh, okay, sure.
Oh, okay.
Legal
Yep.
Shield, if you're a member of Legal Shield, will write a will for you. I have my wills done up in Fort Wayne at a small law practice that specializes in elder law and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. They weren't very expensive. It was a very simple process, because my wills are not, I don't have a lot of stuff. So most people can do a simple will. But if you have children, you want to make sure that somebody is assigned a guardianship for them. You need to, what happens to your assets. You
Mhm.
don't want to have a problem of being without a will, because then the courts decide where your money goes and how it's spent. And it's a lot more difficult for your family if you don't have a will.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter whether you're 21 years old or you're 75 years old, you should have one. And it, you know, even if you don't have a lot of assets, you have some. You want to make sure that that goes to the place that you're most you most care about.
Okay. Well, I think that's, I mean, without going into a lot of, we have a will, but we had it done when our kids were little, and our son, was, I don't know how old, but he was supposed to be he was supposed to
Executor.
be the
Executor. Yeah.
Well, yes, and he was supposed to be, if the girls, because the girls are 3 years younger than him, that he would have taken, he would have been taking care, I don't know what all those things, but now they're all adults. We haven't had it redone, but I think part of the, and I know it's not a big thing to your presentation today, but I'm just saying that we were going to have it redone because it literally needs to be pretty much almost from scratch, but it was going to be fairly expensive. And here we had done it, so I'm just looking at, those are to me, fairly expensive is fairly, it was expensive. It was like, who's got, and then that kind of overwhelmed you. You're thinking, why? Well, I don't want to spend,
You don't have
$2,000
to spend a ton of money. Find a small law firm. Don't go with the great big ones. Those are the ones that tend to be the most expensive. If you live in a smaller community, go with somebody local. Look for someone who is, they're going to use a boilerplate anyway for the most part. So find somebody in your community or go online and get one. Just having having a simple will is not that difficult to write. So I'm not a lawyer, but I worked for one for a long time. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's something, coming from you, who's the, being ready habits. So, it's good to hear that you're saying, but in the event that you wouldn't have one in place, that can be a real problem for
it usually,
everybody.
The courts have to decide how your money is going to be divided up, and typically it'll go to a parent or a child, so or a spouse, but that's not a guarantee. And so for most of us, it's a simple process. We don't have a lot of stuff that we have to worry about. So those are the kinds of folks that really need to have something very simple put in place. And
so don't let it be an obstacle. Get it done so that it's
priorities. Think of Philip and Bella.
Bella's
the dog.
Start
with them.
Well, and that's an issue. Who's going to take the dog?
Right, exactly.
You don't want to leave the money to the dog, by the way. That's not a good thing to do.
But you could set up probably a little something, for the dog. Whoever's going to take care of the dog. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that is that's something you don't think about, obviously you've got to have all that. But one more time, Deb, you put all this information in a place that in the event that you are not there, somebody can find. They know where it is. So, because I think that's
the whole idea is, as we went through and we were gathering all the paperwork up, you put it in a box somewhere so that you at least are gathering it up. Then you take the time to put it into individual sleeves or somewhere in a folder, something. I like the zipper binders because it doesn't fall out.
Constantly falling.
And then you have something that you can take. I don't care if it's a file box. Some people keep file boxes. Use what you've got. I'm not saying that you should have to go out and buy one of these things. I started out, my first one was in a gray binder, and I called it that, my gray binder.
Yeah.
but just kept falling out of it, and the binder would come apart, and
Right.
it was just so much, I found that it was a school thing, when the school sales were on, and I found the binder and went, oh, this is what I need.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had it for several years now, and it works just great. So
Okay, cool.
if you
So-
have any questions, my website is lifeorganizercoach.com. You can email me at life.coach@lifeorganizercoach.com, or give me a call. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can do it for you. I can help you as coaching you through it, whatever you need.
Thank
So,
you
it's been great.
Thank you
much.
so much.
Good
Thank you.
information. Thank you. It's very good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna figure out how to stop the recording.